The Vak'Ruun had arrived. Fleet tendrils streaked across the void like hunger given shape, glimmering red against the edge of the human colony world. Not a battle group, not an invasion force, but a harvest wave. Biological vessels, grown not built, swam through space in glistening arcs, each one pulsing with the grotesque rhythm of predator physiology. Every few seconds, a spike of heat flared from their bellies, chemical digestion, raw fuel made from stars. To the Karothi, watching from high orbit in cloaked silence, the scene was almost ceremonial. "They always begin with 3, noted Overseer Velnra, tapping one curved claw against the glass dome of the observation deck. 3 vanguard clutches, one for surface saturation, one for orbital dominance, and one to listen." He said it with quiet respect, and perhaps a touch of fear. Next to him, Archivist Thulna adjusted his facial mask, 6 eyes narrowing behind its filter plate. "Do you remember what happened on Zeth 4? "I remember. The clouds bled for 6 rotations. They tore the crust off that planet in 6 hours. Faster, actually." A long silence stretched between them. Below, the human colony of Erebus 9 shimmered in orbital scans. A quiet world, barely terraformed, population just under 1 million. Primitive domes, slow atmosphere scrubbers, radio emissions still patterned around binary protocols, fragile, software. "We should not be here," Thulna said at last. "That is precisely why we are here." The Karothi were not a warlike species, not anymore. Once, perhaps, they'd counted conquest as a measure of brilliance. But after the Tether Wars, after the collapse of the Southern Verge, they had turned to documentation, to study, to observation. Understanding the violent was safer than joining them, so they became record keepers, witnesses, intergalactic archivists of extinction events. The Vak'Ruun, however, required no such philosophy. No one knew where they came from. Their biology was fluid. Parts of them seemed engineered, others ancient beyond sequencing. Hive-minded, but not insects. Carnivorous, but not animalistic. Languageless, remorseless, not conquerors, not colonists. They simply arrived, and they fed. "Begin vector mapping," Velnra said, settling deeper into the organic cradle of the command node. "Let's mark the human routes. This will be over quickly, but I want the escape patterns logged." "Understood." Thulna tapped a control organ. The dome filled with predictive arcs, escape pods, orbital scatter paths, likely distress signals. None of it mattered. The humans wouldn't survive. They never did. Even the Maliki, with their 3-brained war tacticians, had fallen in under 20 minutes. The Sarik swarms lasted 6 hours. And humanity? What were they? They used combustion engines in atmosphere. They still formed nations. They still argued with each other. They were prey, wearing the skin of something clever. Below, the Vak'Ruun descended. Atmospheric breach. Tri-symmetry swarm pattern. 3 vessels ejected membranous fins as they entered low orbit, drifting like jellyfish from hell. "Surface saturation in 1 minute," Thulna murmured. "They'll hit the equatorial hubs first," Velnra said. "Children always scream the loudest." They watched. They waited. And nothing happened. No fires. No screams. No human ships fled. Instead, something even more unnatural occurred. The humans went dark. Every signal, every beacon, every telemetry feed, cut. Velnra leaned forward, multiple tendrils twitching. "What is this? Some kind of power loss?" "Number their satellites are still stable, but there's no emissions. They shut down." "Preemptive hiding?" "Cowardice," Velnra muttered. "It won't help." Still, The quiet unsettled him. The Vak'Ruun reached the surface. 3 distinct landing zones. Probing tendrils extended. No defenses detected. No shield towers. The human colony, visible through passive opticals, remained still. Lights dimmed, transports grounded. Streets were empty. Velnra narrowed his inner eyelids. This feels off. Agreed. The dome lit again, an inbound burst from one of the Kyrothi's passive long-range eavesdroppers. Message from the Vak'Ruun? No, Thulna said, voice tightening. From the colony. The message pulsed twice, then displayed in simple Terran glyphs. Threat neutralized, awaiting decontamination. Velnra stared. What? Below, in eerie silence, something rose from beneath the colony's main biodome. Not a war machine, not a ship. A drone. Long, thin, painted matte gray. It drifted silently over the landscape like a surgical scalpel. Its nose glowed with plasma-cutting heat. A dozen others followed, weaving through buildings, scanning with blue-white cones of light. Show me the Vak'Ruun, Velnra ordered. The display shifted. The predators were gone. No, not gone. Neutralized. Their bodies were scattered across the ground in precise lines. No gore, no shrapnel. Each one dismembered with clean, high-frequency incisions. Tendons severed, central minds extracted. One was still twitching, just barely. A human in an unarmored exosuit approached it, knelt beside it, and placed a clear stasis cell over its core. As the field activated, the human said nothing, just turned toward the sky, toward them, and smiled. They were supposed to scream. That was the rhythm of every Vak'Ruun harvest the Kyrothy had ever recorded. Predators descended. Prey ran, fought, wept. The outcome was inevitable, but the method was always consistent. But the humans of Erebus 9, they never screamed. They waited. Overseer Velnra paced the observation dome in tight spirals, his claws clicking with increasing frequency. Replay it again, he snapped, from first contact to final movement. Thulna obeyed, reactivating the holographic field. The timeline appeared once more. 0000, Vak'Ruun fleet arrival, 0002, surface breach, 0004, human signals terminate, 0007, colony defense drones launch, 0013, all Vak'Ruun units down, 0015, message transmitted, threat neutralized, 13 minutes, 13, not just short, surgical. We're missing something, Velnra hissed. No race eliminates a fully deployed Vak'Ruun clutch in 13 minutes, not without orbital defenses, not without casualties. Thulna hesitated. I detected no human casualties, no biological residue from their side. The population remains intact. Then how? The archivist didn't answer, so Velnra turned toward the holotank and zoomed in. At the center of the battlefield, if it could be called that, lay the core of the Vak'Ruun vanguard. Torn, yes, but not chaotically, not like an explosion. No signs of impact weapons, kinetic damage, or plasma burn. Instead, the bodies were folded, as if taken apart by invisible hands. Every nerve cluster severed at once, every communication organ removed, tagged, and laid on sterile polymer trays. In the center of it all, a transport drone hovered silently, laser etching data into carbon slabs. What are they doing? Velnra whispered. Thulna adjusted the magnification. Studying them. Beneath the colony's biodome, more movement. Small groups of humans, scientists, engineers, and something else, moved with practiced precision. They were not repairing, not celebrating, not even alert. They were documenting. Are these researchers? Velnra asked. Negative. Neural activity suggests paramilitary training. But their weaponry is not standard. Another hollow feed loaded. Humans, dressed in gray-black armor without insignias, operated heavy equipment that looked nothing like traditional weapons. They fired no shots, deployed no shielding. Yet wherever they moved, the Vak'Ruun fell, in perfect sequence. Scan that equipment, Velnra ordered. The display stuttered, then returned, incomplete. Interference? No, Thulna said. The devices aren't broadcasting anything. Then how are they functioning? They're tuned to something else. Velnra's claws stopped clicking. To the Vak'Ruun. The data feeds unraveled further. Human attack teams, strike deltas, the tags read, had deployed before the Vak'Ruun even entered low orbit. They'd established a network of dampening towers weeks ago, buried beneath the colony under the guise of infrastructure repair. The towers emitted no active energy. They didn't need to, because when the Vak'Ruun entered the atmosphere, their aggression patterns inverted. This wasn't a defense, Velnra muttered. This was a trap. Thulna turned slowly. They baited the Vak'Ruun. They wanted them to come, and now they're harvesting them. There was a word for this in ancient Kirothi, Shanol Ket, the silence of prepared violence. It wasn't just efficiency. It wasn't just tactics. It was the absence of doubt, the erasure of panic. The moment a blade enters the flesh before you realize you've been cut. The humans hadn't reacted to the Vak'Ruun. They'd been waiting. Pull historical scans, Velnra ordered. I want Erebus 9 surveillance for the last 10 cycles. Thulna nodded. Minutes later, the feed appeared. One by one, dates ticked backward, showing nothing out of the ordinary. Construction, farming, standard colonist logistics. But then, one frame, a quiet loading bay, 3 humans dressed in civilian garb, speaking softly, and on the table between them, a Vak'Ruun talon, severed, preserved, old. The footage was time-stamped 8 years ago. They've seen them before, Velnra said flatly. Thulna nodded. They've been studying them. A new feed appeared, a black and white command room, human officials seated around a dark table. On the wall, a projection of known Vak'Ruun ship profiles, pulsing lines of text labeled Neural Architecture Vulnerabilities, Hormonal Inversion Triggers, Command Signal Overwrite Trial 6. At the bottom of the feed, Project Gravedigger. Velnra felt something cold bloom in the base of his cranial stem. They knew they'd come, and they prepared. Why didn't they tell the galaxy? Thulna asked. Why keep this secret? Why let other species fall? The answer came from the humans themselves. Another intercepted transmission. Brief, encoded, automated. We learned one thing early. You don't scare predators by warning them. You scare them by surviving them, quietly, repeatedly, and by making sure no one else does. Velnra stood frozen. The humans weren't survivors. They were hunters. The galaxy had mistaken silence for weakness. It had mistaken restraint for fear. But the humans, they'd been observing the Vak'Ruun. They didn't scream because they never intended to run. The message was not supposed to exist. It wasn't transmitted on any known frequency. It bypassed every layer of Kirothi signal security, gliding effortlessly past firewalls, penetrating thought mask relays, and blooming directly into the primary bridge interface of the Chronicler's eye. The cloaked observation cruiser from which Overseer Velnra and Archivist Thulna had watched what they expected to be a slaughter. Instead, they saw something far worse. We knew you were watching. You're safe. For now. The letters weren't Karothi glyphs. They were Terran. But they displayed inside the Karothi interface, as though the ship itself had been rewritten. Thulna backed away from his console. I didn't connect to them, he stammered. I wasn't even scanning. You didn't need to, Vak'Ruun said, voice low. They found us. Vak'Ruun turned slowly toward the viewport. Erebus 9 still shimmered below, quiet and undisturbed. The colony domes were intact. The sky above was clear. But now something had changed. In low orbit, a Terran satellite that hadn't been there 10 minutes prior was now fully deployed, sleek, dark, angular, positioned in perfect line of sight with their cloaked vessel. Vak'Ruun snarled. That wasn't here before. Thulna activated a scan. It's not transmitting, no active energy, it's just looking. No, not looking, watching. The message updated. No sound, no signal, just text across the bridge. Your vessel is not under threat. Your data is intact. Do not share it. Not yet. We still have questions. And one of them is, why you let the Vak'Ruun exist this long? Thulna stared. They're accusing us. No, Vak'Ruun said. They're measuring us. How? By what we didn't do. The lights on the bridge dimmed. Not by system fault, but in response to a handshake protocol, one originating from the satellite. The hull adjusted its frequency. Internal systems switched to passive override, and the human signal, more a presence than a command, made itself known. Not in words, not in sound, but in emotion, a projection. They both felt it, a memory, not their own. It began with a cold room, steel walls, a table, a single light, a creature restrained, not a human, a Vak'Ruun drone. Its body was cracked open in a perfect Y incision, still alive, still twitching. Humans surrounded it, calmly, clinically. One read its neural pulses aloud. Another extracted a gland, dropped it in solution. Then came the words. We've run enough. A human in gray leaned over the table, face unreadable, calm. This one lives, the others won't. The Vak'Ruun spasmed, then fell still. The memory ended, the bridge lights returned, and the satellite vanished. No propulsion signature, Thulna whispered. No FTL, no phase warp. It just folded away, Vak'Ruun finished. He stared at the place it had been. The silence on the bridge was absolute. Then the transmission returned. Final, brief. Do not romanticize us. Do not pity us. And do not tell others yet. We weren't meant to win. We just got tired of losing. So we studied the hunters. And then we became something worse. Vak'Ruun sank into the command cradle. The implications were still echoing. You realize what this means, he said. Thulna nodded, quietly. They've reversed the predator-prey curve. They didn't just fight back, they re-engineered the hunt. And now, they're watching to see who else watched. The data archive filled with more signals, logs, redacted reports, snippets of human conversations captured on Erebus 9 days before the attack. One stuck out. A human scientist speaking to another near a lab filled with what looked like Vak'Ruun larval shells. What if they don't come back? They will. And if someone's watching? Good. Why? Because maybe next time someone warns us before they get here. Thulna turned, slowly. We didn't warn them. No, Velnra admitted. We assumed they would die. And now they know that we assumed. He tapped a claw to the interface, pausing the data flow. Deactivate recording. Why? Because this isn't a moment for the archives. He turned, slowly, eyes wide. This is the part where we decide what kind of species we are. The lower decks of the chronicler's eye were not designed for secrecy. The Karothi, by nature, preferred transparency, information made accessible, consensus built on collective knowing. But now, within a sealed archive bay ringed with memory screens and voice-locked nodes, Overseer Velnra ordered all access classified. Only he and Thulna remained inside. Before them, the Terran packet expanded like a living organism. A gift. A threat. An answer. It's not just telemetry, Thulna murmured, sliding one data glyph across the viewing plane. It's history, coded, context. The human signals weren't designed to be intercepted. That much was clear. The language evolved midstream, glyphs folding into glyphs, syntax shifting based on time of day, on psychological profile, on who was reading, but the message got through because they wanted it to. They made sure we'd see this, Velnra said. They knew we'd ask how. And now they're showing us. File header, Project Gravedigger. Initiated 216 years ago. Location, multiple Terran colonies, black-level compartmentalization. Primary objective, long-term behavioral and neurological mapping of extraterrestrial apex predators. Secondary objective, development of species neutral suppression architecture. Tertiary objective, inversion. It is not enough to survive the hunt. The true evolution is to control when it begins. Velnra read the phrase twice. Inversion, he echoed. They didn't just study how to defend themselves. They studied how to weaponize vulnerability. The next file unfurled in sequence. Gravedigger 14. Field Protocol. Visual footage. Date stamped 83 cycles prior. A field team of Terrans, none wearing insignias, navigated the shattered remains of a Vak'Ruun kill site. Bones still wet, soil blackened. Above them, a dead star hung red and indifferent. One human kneeled, drew a circle in the ash, spoke. They never question pain. They expect it, so we changed what it meant. We didn't outgun them. We outthought their instincts. He pulled a neural device from his bag, a humming array of microspikes wrapped in what looked like flesh. Terror's a language. We just learned to speak it first. The next file showed something worse. Gravedigger 21. Live capture. Location. Undisclosed Terran black site. Inside. A room, sterile, silent, ringed with thought-dampening fields. Suspended from the ceiling, a restrained Vak'Ruun alpha, still alive, still twitching. 12 humans observed from behind a wall of one-way glass. They weren't scientists. They weren't soldiers. They were trainers. Thulna flinched. Are they teaching it? No, Velnra whispered. They're testing how long it takes to break. The humans didn't speak. They didn't prod. They just let the thing feel the silence. Let it remember how its species had failed. Let it absorb that prey could now study predators without fear. And then came the final file. Gravedigger read, "Deployment memo. A simple message, likely never meant to be read by anyone outside the Terran defense cortex. One line. We no longer build weapons to defend our homes. We build environments where predators feel hunted. Let the galaxy adjust." Vak'Ruun felt a deep pressure building behind his jaw crests. This wasn't a tactical play. This wasn't retaliation. This was philosophical war. They hadn't waited for a galactic alliance. They hadn't asked permission. They had watched for generations as species like the Karothi studied and archived extinction after extinction. And then the humans opted out. They didn't just break the food chain, Thulna said, nearly whispering. They unmade it. More images poured in. Schematic overlays of colony layouts, deceptively mundane, but built with embedded acoustic fields that disrupted hive-based thought projection. Psychological profile reports designed not for diplomacy, but for luring. One disturbing memo detailed the optimal smell profiles to trigger territorial responses in the Vak'Ruun. Certain Terran compounds were synthesized to mimic prey hormones, then weaponized as chemical bait. Another showed that the humans had been broadcasting false distress beacons for years, coded to resemble panicked refugee cries, all across fringe space, waiting for the Vak'Ruun to come. Thulna was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "They didn't win because they were strong." Vak'Ruun nodded. "They won because they refused to be food ever again." There was one final file. The last, hidden under a security glyph shaped like a closed human eye. Vak'Ruun opened it. Inside was a recording. A voice, female, calm, unshaken. Terran military clearance signature, Black Vela, Erebus 9 coordinator. She spoke slowly. "To whoever's watching this, we assume you're advanced, probably peaceful. Observers. Observers, maybe. Like we used to be. That's good. You'll understand what we're about to say. We spent generations afraid, generations watching stronger species disappear. So we stopped hoping and started preparing. You've seen the result. Now, let us ask you a question. What have you done to stop the predators? Because if the answer is nothing, then you're not an ally. You're a vector." The screen went dark. The interface pulsed once, then locked itself. Data sealed. Transmission ended. And just above the dome, in the shadow of Erebus 9, a new Terran vessel arrived. It bore no weapons. It bore no name. But it began scanning the chronicler's eye. Silently, patiently, the chronicler's eye initiated a soft burn vector away from Erebus 9. No orders were spoken, no commands issued. The ship simply knew. Some instincts ran deeper than culture, and survival, real, primal survival, was older than language. Overseer Vak'Ruun stood alone on the darkened bridge. Below, the human colony shrank behind layers of passive shielding and false neutrality. But Vak'Ruun no longer saw a backwater outpost. He saw a loaded trap, a coiled fist, a species that had become something the rest of the galaxy had no name for. and above the colony, gliding effortlessly in low orbit, the unnamed Terran vessel still hovered, scanning their ship, never speaking, never threatening, just watching. "Are they pursuing us?" Thulna asked, voice hushed. "No." "Then, why haven't they left?" Velnra turned from the viewport. "They want us to understand." "Understand what?" "That they could." He paced the command ring slowly, claws silent on the soft bone tile floor. "I thought I understood predators," he said. "I believed they kill because they must, because hunger or instinct or dominance demands it. But the humans, they're not killing for any of those reasons." "Then why?" Velnra stopped and looked up. "They're killing because they know what it means not to." The final Terran transmission came as the chronicler's eye reached fold range. Again, no carrier wave, no decrypt required, just a simple image, a stasis pod. Inside it, a single Vak'Ruun queen, sedated, perfectly preserved, tagged with a Terran symbol, specimen retained, study in progress. Below it 3 words, "We remember everything." No boasting, no gloating, no warning, just proof and patience. Velnra closed his eyes, because now he understood the truth no archive could contain. The humans didn't fight like prey. They fought like something worse, like memory given teeth. They had turned the silence of the hunted into the stillness of the hunter. They had turned extinction into education. Final logs from Erebus 9 confirmed it. The humans weren't mobilizing a fleet. They weren't preparing to expand. They weren't demanding reparations or tribute or vengeance. They were simply cataloging, waiting for the next threat, not because they feared it, but because they wanted it to come, so they could learn from it and erase it. Thulna entered the bridge hours later, slow and careful. "You've been quiet." Velnra did not turn. "I'm thinking. What will you tell the High Council?" "The truth. That we let the Vak'Ruun prey on species for centuries? That we watched and never warned?" "No," Velnra said. "That humanity didn't survive by luck. They evolved on purpose." He gestured to the empty star field, now growing brighter with each passing second. "I will tell them we were wrong. I will tell them we missed the moment the food became the knife. I will tell them," he paused, and then, "we're not the apex anymore." He tapped the final log seal into place. The entry flashed once, Omega Red priority, eyes only, and then, for the first time in Kirothi archival history, a directive was added. Do not intervene. Do not warn others. Do not approach human space. He added one more note. Not policy, not science, just clarity. We thought they would run. They never did. They waited. They planned. They adapted. And now they are what every predator fears most. The prey that studies back.